all to start taking your seats so we can enjoy the wonderful music program by Shri Naveen Gandharva and the Anuraj Classical Band. So please do sit down, enjoy the music, and after this we will start with our speakers and the main program. Thank you. Bye.
By Srimati Amrita Upredi ji. It was based on Rag Bhopali. And now we are presenting Anuraj Classical Band, starting with a piece called Welcoming Love. So you will find some pain in love and happiness in love. So hope you will enjoy. Thank you.
Good evening to all of you. Artha Forum welcomes all of you here today in this beautiful convention hall of the BSE. We just had a beautiful rendition of classical music by Pandit Naveen Gandharvaji and his Anuraj Classical Band. A big hand to all of them. Pandit Naveen Gandharva, with his hard work and dedication, is the only Bela Bahar artist of the younger generation. The Bela Bahar is a unique and advanced bow instrument created by merging the principles of the sarangi, the violin, and the vocal voice. Pandit Naveen Gandharva has learned the Bela Bahar from his illustrious father, Pandit Babulal Gandharva, who is the inventor and the eminent player of this enchanting musical gift to the world. Melody and rhythm in one artist is a rare combination in Indian classical music. But Pandit Naveen Gandharvaji has this unique attribute, and thus he plays both the Bela Bahar as well as the tabla with equal passion and dexterity. Panditji is a great visionary who has added new dimensions to Indian classical music by forming the Anuraj Classical Band, a highly acclaimed and professional classical band which aims to promote Indian musical heritage all over the globe. So we are really fortunate to have them with us today, and I will introduce each of the members. We have Shri Devanand Gandharva on the keyboard. We have Shri Pramod Gudekar on the octopad and the drums. We just had a rendition by Srimati Amrita Opreti on the basuri. If she is here, she can please come forward. And finally, of course, we have Pandit Naveen Gandharvaji on the Bela Bahar and the tabla. We thank you so much. Ayub Khan on the tabla. My mistake, yes. Thank you so much. We are honored to have you. And now we will proceed with the onward program. While we still wait for some of the guests, we decided that we would proceed and they will join us as they come. So today, it is our pleasure and privilege to welcome all our honored guests for our convention on Business with a Purpose. At the outset, I wish to inform you all that we are unable to have our Honorable Chief Minister, Shri Devendra Fadnavis, with us today. Due to unavoidable circumstances, he cannot be here. And we regret this disappointment to all of you. However, we are equally honored to have his Principal Secretary, Shri Parveen Pardesi, here with us today. He is on his way, but he will join us shortly. Today's topic is Business with a Purpose. It is seen that purpose-driven companies are usually, most often, more successful. And what makes companies wildly successful while others just don't quite make it? Starting and thriving in today's economy is hard, but the companies that figure it out have something in common. And what is this? We have found that the pursuit of purpose alongside the pursuit of profit gives the company the cutting edge. A purpose mobilizes people in a way that pursuing profits alone never will. For a company to thrive, it needs to infuse its purpose in everything that it does. So for a purpose-driven business, we have identified the 4 pillars which need to be integrated into business practices. You may have seen them on our logo for today. And these are intrinsic spirituality, conscious capitalism, an outward approach, and cultivating happier employees. Artha Forum here today is to help you, help businesses, help entrepreneurs connect to these higher principles. For this, let us see a brief video on the Artha Forum, after which I will request one of our founding members, Sri Rajiv Srivastava, to come here and say a few words on what Artha Forum stands for. So now for the audiovisual on Artha Forum.
Good evening, friends, and a warm welcome here. We really appreciate all of you taking the time on a weekday to come and spend the evening with us. And amongst you are professionals, are entrepreneurs, and I'm just going to be very briefly sharing with you that Artha Forum is now in its in the 4th year. We started with an event at the Govardhan Eco Village in 2013. And now we have come a long way. At our events at Silicon Valley, we've been fortunate to have speakers like Marcy Shimoff. We also had Tulsi Gabbard, and in fact, she was a speaker here when Prime Minister Modi invited Senator Tulsi Gabbard from the US to come down. So she has spoken and encouraged entrepreneurs. We've had several successful entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, like Sanjay Mehrotra, who just, he's the co-founder of SanDisk. We have Damodar Reddy. In Singapore, an interesting development of 3 years of Artha Forum, and one of the speakers, in fact, he's also on the board of Ajay Piramal's company, Gautam Banerjee. Gautam Banerjee spoke at an Artha Forum event, and the government has made him the chairman of an organization called RACE. So the Singapore government actually recognizes social entrepreneurship as being very important. And I don't know whether we were first or they were first, but just a month ago they had a conference, and the theme of the conference was exactly the same: business with a purpose. So Gaurang Prabhu, who designed this theme, Singapore also found that this is a very important thing, and the government is actively, encouraging more and more social entrepreneurship. We are happy that we now have the second event here. Last year we had an event, and we had more than 450 entrepreneurs who came. And I can just tell you that at all our Artha Forum events, we've always had one person from, a spiritual person also speak. And we really found that to always be very effective, because, we are trying to motivate entrepreneurs all over the world to look at business, to look at entrepreneurship, but have a higher purpose. And as Nupur said earlier, I'm happy to even share in a practical way that many young entrepreneurs who have actually imbibed this principle in their companies. I remember one company in Chennai, which was just a $6 million company, and the co-founder and CEO decided that he wants to now dovetail his business by offering a part of his ownership to charity. And even though this business consistently for 5 years would only stay in the 5 to 6 million range, by incorporating these higher principles is now over a $40 million company, mentioned in Gartner as a very cool tech company. So many entrepreneurs, when they imbibe these higher principles, they actually do a lot better than what they would do otherwise. Thank you again, and I hope you enjoy this evening. May I request the speakers to kindly come on stage?
Thank you, Rajiv. Rajiv Srivastava is the very passionate founder member of Artha Forum, and it is he who has taken it to the great heights that it is today and shown the world how to blend spirituality with corporate governance. And now we request our speakers to kindly come on the stage as I call them out. I begin with Shri Praveen Pardesi, the Principal Secretary of the Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Also next we have Shri Ajay Piramalji, Chairman of the Piramal Group of Companies. We have our very own BSE Managing Director and CEO, Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan. And finally, we have His Holiness Radhanath Swami. I request all our guests of honor to kindly come on stage. Thank you for that video. And now we move on to our speakers. As you know, Artha Forum has partnered with the BSE to host this evening's event. And I thus call upon none other than Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan, the very dynamic Managing Director and the CEO of the Bombay Stock Exchange, to open this evening. And though none of our eminent speakers need any introduction, and they're iconic in their own fields, I just wish to share a few words of introduction for each speaker to welcome them. Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan is best known as the father of modern financial derivatives in India due to his work at the National Stock Exchange. He was instrumental in setting up India's first fully automated screen-based trading system and first commercial satellite communications network. He has also created several path-breaking frameworks, including Nifty Index, NSE certifications in financial markets, etc. He has won several national and international awards, including the CEO of the Year in 2015 in Hong Kong. Without further ado, I hand over the mic to Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan, who will open the topic Business with a Purpose, and specifically speak to us on the principle of creating happier employees. Thank you so much, Mr. Chauhan. Over to you.
His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, Shri Ajay Pilaman, Shri Praveen Pardesi, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and honor to welcome you all to this second edition of Artha Forum. The last year also, I think many of you participated here in the same venue. And as Mr. Srivastava pointed out, there are many events that Artha Forum does. I am delighted to be a participant here. The talk which I need to tell you is about how do you keep happier, how to have happier employees. And first question that came to my mind is, can you make anyone happy? What is happiness? Unless we understand, it becomes very difficult to sort of go and figure out how do you create happiness. And the other question, once you start asking questions, then many more questions come to your mind. Said, what is happiness? And can you make anyone happy? But can you, if you can make somebody happy, can you keep the happiness? Or the happiness is is ephemeral, it goes away faster. And so, can anyone become really happy? What are the ways to make people happy, if at all there is a way? And sometimes it is said that happiness is a state of mind. It comes from within. Especially in Buddhism, it is basically it's kind of part of the teachings that if you don't have desires, then that is the greatest sort of state of mind, because if you want to be happy, you will remain unhappy in a way because you have a desire. So if you have lack of desire, that is the best framework of mind. So other thing which came to my mind while I was sort of thinking about this is, happiness for me may not be a happiness for you. And so just now we are going through the concept of demonetization, right? And many of us are happy because the other person's money is gone waste, right? And many of us are unhappy that our money is gone waste, and so on and so forth. So effectively, it is sometimes very, very difficult to figure out that what is happiness which is constant. Does it change from person to person? Does it change from time to time for the same person? So if you might be happy with a lollipop when you are a child, and when you grow up, probably you may not be so happy because you are diabetic like me. And so effectively, there are many, many situations in life which ensure that happiness is not something which is kind of you can hold on to for long, and it varies from time to time for the same person, also from time to time in person to person. The other thing which comes to my mind is that it also varies with age. Because of the way we are structured, the way the chemicals go around in our body, the hormones and whatever you call it, at age 15, happiness it comes out of different things, and age 55, it comes out of different things, and probably at 80, you are happy if you just, the body doesn't creak, right? So there are many, many situations in which you become happy because of a variety of reasons. In a corporate world, we have many people who have thought about this, and there was a great person called Maslow. There was a Maslow's hierarchy that basically most people work initially for the basic amenities, that you get food, you get clothing, you get shelter, and that is what you try to work for. And then you go a little higher up and you kind of go in search of luxury. But at the highest level of the pyramid, you go in search of higher purpose. You ask, why am I here? Who am I? And that is what I call spirituality, that finally, even Western world has figured this, that we need to go something higher and higher. And finally, when you reach that, you search for a spiritual sort of process through which you try to get the happiness or try to attain the meaning of life. And there is, of course, physical happiness and spiritual happiness. Both can be, you can be really in physical trouble. There are many rishis and munis who I have met, and many of them have stayed without clothes in very cold conditions in Himalayas for years. And still they were happy in those days also. And when they come down to plains, they are still happy. So you can be in physically difficult conditions, but spiritually happy, and vice versa. So you can be having huge amount of worldly pleasures, but spiritually or mentally you may not be that happy. So how do you figure that out in your organization? How do you inculcate happiness? And one of the biggest things I have seen is, if you can have people who can control their lives, who have kind of respect, who get respect for their work, they can control what they need to do, who have pride in their work, who have sense of achievement, then that person is happy, that organization is happy, that people surrounding that person are happy. So effectively, the responsibility and authority go hand in hand. If you have only people who take responsibility, you need to tell them that do this, do that, and if you don't give them authority, usually you don't get to see them happy in the long run. But if you tell them that, okay, we need to do this kind of activity, and what we need to do, and then you figure out, go ahead and do it, many people will take that bait and start running with it, and many of them run very, very fast and very happily. If you recall Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times, I don't know how many of you have seen, that person keeps on hammering on a nail every time on the assembly line, and that person is completely unhappy because he or she is not able to understand that they are making a car. But if you kind of get them involved in designing a car and making a car, that is going to be a much more happy life. So overall, for whatever experience I had, I have myself experienced, and also I see in my colleagues at BSE and other places that if any individual has a control and a respect and authority, they end up doing their responsibility beyond what is there. Of course, exploitation is a part of life, and how you reduce the exploitation to even keep people generally on the what I call physical plane happy is also an important aspect of work culture. And how do you keep the balance? A work-life balance is an absolutely important part, and each employee of any organization needs to have some time for himself or herself, and also for the family in addition to the work. And today, with 24/7 mobiles in hand, it's very difficult to now figure out whether you're working or not. Because most times you go home, you are checking out on your mobile whether any mail has come or you need to reply, and it's not bad. I'm not trying to tell that you should not do that, because life is 24/7 and things happen 24/7 and you have responsibilities. But if you can create a framework of ensuring that everyone is still able to spend some time with their families, for themselves alone, and also with their colleagues in informal ways, probably you are going to be having a much happier organization going forward. The last part is that many of our people today are more exposed to many things because of television, internet, and other things, and they have aspirations. And aspirations have no limit. And if you can basically create a framework to tell them how to be happy from within, it will create a great, happy sort of work culture. And I know one organization which starts the day with Vipassana, and basically, if you can have that kind of a framework in your organization, probably you will have a much larger or much more happiness than you would otherwise have. So thank you very much for coming, and I hope we enjoyed today's evening. Thank you very much.
A very big thank you to our host, Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan, for those very enlightening words. And yes, it's true, our desires are limitless. And perhaps, as he said, that there are two ways of being happier. One is to have more, and truly the other is to desire less. Thank you so much, Mr. Chauhan. And I think you would like to give out the mementos on behalf of BSE, the very iconic mementos of the bull. He would like to present this to other guests of honor. So to Mr. Praveen Pardesi, a big hand. I'm sorry, I was mistaken. I was thinking it's the bull again. But now we have a lovely, bull is there as well. Lovely. Thank you. To Shri Ajay Piramal ji. And to His Holiness Radhanath Swami. Our next speaker for the evening is Mr. Ajay Piramal, the chairman of the Piramal Group and the Sri Ram Group, one of the most respected, diversified conglomerates with a presence across more than 100 countries. Applauded as one of India's leading entrepreneurs, innovators, and philanthropists, Mr. Ajay Piramal has enabled the Piramal Group to evolve from a primarily textile-centric business to a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate with diversified business interests across pharmaceuticals, packaging, financial services, information management, and real estate development. Apart from his business interests, through the Piramal Foundation and CSR, Mr. Piramal has dedicated his life towards sustainably improving rural healthcare, primary rural education, providing potable water, empowerment of women, and leadership training. The Piramal Foundation also wholeheartedly supports the ISKCON midday meal project. Mr. Ajay Piramal's life revolves around the study of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he uses these timeless principles successfully and applies it to every aspect of his life. In fact, if ever you go to his office, you will see that each of his conference rooms are named after characters in the Bhagavad Gita, and there are shlokas everywhere, and the whole mood of his office is trying to put the Gita into practice. So now, yes, thank you for being with us, Ajay ji. And I now call upon Mr. Ajay Piramal to speak about how conscious capitalism can bring about purpose to business. Over to Ajay ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Nupur. His Holiness Radhanath Swami, Mr. Praveen Pardesi, our host for this evening, Mr. Chauhan, and ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how many of you saw, but a few weeks ago, there was a photograph at this very place where His Holiness Radhanath Swami was there, and so was Mr. Chauhan during the Diwali celebrations. That was a time when, during Diwali, as you know, we do puja of Lakshmi. And when we start writing our books of account for the new year, and in many other locations you'll find as entrances of the house, you'll put Shubh Labh. So I wonder if we have thought as to why we put Shubh Labh. And why do we worship Lakshmi during Diwali? So Labh is Lakshmi, and it is said that Lakshmi only remains when it is Shubh, or when Lakshmi is with Vishnu, the consort. That's when it's permanent. And hence, if you have Lakshmi which is pure, that's the only way you can retain it. So in the Ramayana, Sita is denoted as Lakshmi. And as long as Sita is with Ram, she spreads prosperity to both herself and Ram. But when an evil force like Ravan takes her away, you've seen what the destruction of his whole. Ravan was supposed to be the strongest, the mightiest, the largest empire, and you've seen that destruction. So I think when we talk about conscious capitalism, we knew this in our culture thousands of years ago. Coming to the present world, every year there is a forum in Davos where all the CEOs of large, important global companies meet. And every year, they have a survey which is done by PwC as to see which are the most admired CEOs of companies. There are many companies who are in the pharmaceutical industry who come to attend Davos. But I really feel upset when I see that amongst the top 100, the most respected CEO of pharmaceutical company probably ranks somewhere in the bottom 25%. In spite of all the good that pharmaceuticals have done to us, I mean, our longevity has gone up in every part of the world. People are now talking of living beyond 100 years. And yet, we find that the industry and their leaders are not respected. What is the reason for that? And I'll just give you an example. Recently, I don't know if you have read, but there are two companies a lot in the news in the US. A company called Valiant, where they got a new CEO, and there was a drug which was a life-saving drug. And this person, the day he entered there, because there was no competition, increased the price by 3,000% overnight. If we do things like this, I wonder if you can really be called is that conscious capitalism? Does that help in the long run? No, because I mean, he was hauled up by the Congress, the US, and really hammered down. Similarly, think of the large food companies. Some of the myths that have been spread over so many years. When I was growing up, the most healthy thing to have early morning was to have the so-called freshly squeezed orange juice which came in the Orangina can. And that is, I think it's really sheer poison that we are taking, and you can take so many other examples. And that's the reason why today there is an issue about capitalism. The famous author, Thomas Piketty, who just wrote about capitalism in the 21st century, has actually given some statistics that in the last 20 years actually the GDP growth rate has been the fastest in the world. But we find that the share of this wealth is actually only restricted to the topmost level. And hence you find that the top 1% of the population in the US, just 1%, has got 25% of the GDP growth, the advantage. So it's becoming skewed. And that is having serious repercussions which sometimes we don't understand. Look at what's happening in the US when Donald Trump is getting elected. What happened in Brexit? These are just signs that there is a big divide between the haves and the have-nots. And if we don't address that, there is an issue. And this was actually really well addressed, if I may say, in the Bhagavad Gita itself. When, as His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj always reminds us, that the wealth that we have in this world, or the people who are supposedly the rich who have the wealth, really have to act as trustees of that wealth, it is really owned by the Lord, and it is for the benefit of entire society. And this is conscious capitalism. This is capitalism with a purpose. This was further expanded by Gandhiji when he spoke about the whole concept of trusteeship. And that's the foundation also of how we as a group look at ourselves. We say that we are trustees of all the stakeholders. Our stakeholders are our customers. Our stakeholders are our shareholders, employees, and society. And what does a trustee mean? A definition of a trustee is that usually there is somebody who gives you a certain amount of wealth. The job of the trustee is to see that this wealth is preserved and it is increased, and finally that is given for the benefit of all its stakeholders. So does it mean that all its stakeholders means that you don't look at profit? No, I think profit is very important. Sometimes we get mixed up, I think, that when we talk about taking care of stakeholders, profit is not important. It is. In fact, profit is in some ways the oxygen that you need for a body to survive. So for any business, if you don't make profit, you cannot survive. But oxygen is not the reason why a person lives. It's essential to have oxygen, but that's not the reason for a person's existence. Similarly, I would say it's for profits. Let me give you a few examples of how trusteeship has helped us. We say that we are trustees for our consumers, or we will do things which is in the best interest of consumers. We are in the real estate industry where we develop real estate for consumers. As you know, the real estate industry has not a very good name. I think all of us have bought houses sometime in our lives or will buy houses sometime in our life. And you know how challenging it is to buy a house and get it on time. And for a developer to really deliver everything that person promises. The famous movie Khosla Ka Ghosla is just one example of that. So what did we do? When we started developing, we said we call what is a piramal assurance, where anybody who is not satisfied with what they are getting, or they feel there's a delay different from what we have promised, they have the right to get back their money or what they've invested in. So this people would have thought would be a huge cost. But actually we found that when you practice this concept of trusteeship, you actually gain. And this meant that we got many more people booking our flats than anybody else would have. Because at the end of the day, we believe, and I've seen this many times, that values actually create economic value for people as well. So when you are serving society, you would say that that's a cost that you are incurring. But we find that the goodwill that it generates, and Mr. Chauhan talked about happy employees, how employees really get motivated to work in an organization which is value-based and which does work for society. You get the greater commitment, you get them to work for you there is no attrition, and there is a higher level of motivation and pride. Similarly, as I said, when we talk about trusteeship for employees, we found that whenever we've been pretty fair and transparent with employees. And as you know, in business, there are good times, some businesses don't do well. So we hire people, at times we've also asked people to leave. But if you deal with them fairly, that in spite of all the tensions and you hear of strikes, we've not had them, only because people know and trust us that we will do it for their best interest. Therefore, values have always created economic value. Looking at our last group of stakeholders, which is the shareholders, we can say that in the last 28 years, I can say that we have given a return to our shareholders, which is a 30% annual growth in their value. I think it is amongst the top 10 companies in the country to have done that consistently. And it's only because, as I said, it's because we've practiced a value-based. And hence, I think, businesses which have a very critical role to play in society, and which have, actually they are the most important somewhere institution, have a big role to play. And hence we talked about purpose. the purpose that we as a group have, and that was inspired by Radhanath Swami, is doing well and doing good. So everything that we do, whether it's in business, whether it's in philanthropy, should be done well, it should be doing good, and it should make a positive difference by serving people and improving it. Why do we say that it's important that we have a purpose which talks about doing good? And I'm only going to end with a poem which is by a Tamil poet called Aviyar, and I'm just reading its English translation. And that's why we believe in our purpose, that doing well, doing good, and making a positive difference. So I want to just quote, "It is very rare and a great opportunity to be born as a human being. Maybe after several births, one is blessed to be born a human being. It is still more rare that we are born without any physical, mental, or other disabilities. Even if you are born with all the facilities intact, it is also rare to be educated and given an opportunity to gain proper knowledge. Even if you have acquired knowledge and wisdom, it is rare for one to give wealth and also look for spiritual awakening. If one does dhan, wealth, and tapas, ultimately the gates of heaven will open for you and God will greet you to the heaven." So that has been our inspiration. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ajayji, for those very enlightening words. And truly, as you have said, the essence of conscious capitalism is the sense of trusteeship over ownership to create economic value in our businesses. And Ajayji, it was wonderful to hear and know about the Piramal assurance. Definitely, that's what we can expect from the Piramals, the Piramal name. Thank you, Ajayji. And now, I wish to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Pravin Pardesi, who is the Principal Secretary to the Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra. A little bit about him. He was the topper of the 85 batch of the IAS exam and has been in government administration for the last 29 years. He was collector for Sholapur and Latur and has done extensive work during the earthquake in Latur. Prior to working in the Chief Minister's office, Shri Pravin Pardesi was the Principal Secretary, Forests, Government of Maharashtra. In recognition of the dramatic transformation he has brought about in wildlife conservation in Maharashtra, he and the state government were presented with a Sanctuary Award in 2011. How did an urban development expert and an economist trained at the London School of Economics metamorphose into one of Maharashtra's most effective tiger protectors and wildlife conservationists? Well, let's hear from the man himself on how he maintains an outward approach in leading the state with a purpose. Over to Shri Pravin Pardesi.
His Holiness Radhanath Swamiji, our host, Mr. Chauhan, CEO of this BSE, Mr. Ajay Piramalji, and dear friends, it gives me great pleasure to be here and talk about what the Earth Forum has labeled business with a purpose. Not having worked in the business sector, I was mulling over what one should speak about, and I thought that the interface with government of the business could be an area which I thought I could talk about. Reflecting a bit about how the Indian economy has changed vis-a-vis how it looks upon business. I think one of the fundamental issues was that we got into this whole post-independent growth and development paradigm, looking at capitalist business as the main enemies of the state. So that's how the first 30 years of our growth trajectory showed. When we were students, and we used to think about countries like Vietnam, as students we used to feel sad about them, that these countries wrecked by how would they ever come up. When after 10 or 15 years in government, suddenly we find that forget about Vietnam, forget about Malaysia, we need to compare India now with Kenya and countries like that. And why did this take place? So there was a fundamental problem about how we conceptualized India's growth trajectory as a government-driven effort with businesses as prime sources of all the malaise in the economy. Well, that was just part of it. Even bigger part of that was that it was like riding a cycle with only one wheel. So you don't have the second wheel. Government can't drive everything. And if you can't leverage the market efficiency, which business entrepreneurship brings in, then you see where Indian economy is versus a small little neighbor like Vietnam, which started much later than us, but realized that they need to leverage private entrepreneurship, even though they are supposedly a communist country. So where does this shifting paradigm relate to today's topic? And that's very important, actually. The main reason why, right from Mahalanobis days, when we were thinking about how India's growth should take place and the state should command the strategic heights of the economy, we always thought that big business, driven by profit maximization, will drive the economy towards only private gain. And therefore, it needs state intervention to take away this profit motive, because the state supposedly runs, including enterprises, infrastructure, for the common public good. This has not worked at all. And then now, midterm, when we started thinking we need to have PPP models where we combine the best of business and best of government, again, we ran into a problem. And when we talk to when we interlocate with the other group, which stringently opposes working with the private sector in the government side, they say, oh, you're working with the private side. So my own transformation came about when, very recently, we were in Sweden and with the chief minister. And one of the most supposedly profit-making companies is actually a charity. So IKEA, we all think that it makes lots of profits, and it must be in the sense that we understand, but none of the profits can be used for any of its owners. All the profits have to be channelized back either in the company's growth or in research or in climate change and those sorts of investments, because the owner of IKEA is a charity. It's quite mind-blowing in terms of when we think about all this mindset that we grew up in the government. That so we don't have to look outside our country, Sweden. If you look within India, I mean, if you see Tatas, which are one of the biggest cross-sector conglomerates, but it's run by a trust. And the fundamental purpose of that trust is overall welfare. Whether it's in Gadchiroli, where they are providing livelihoods to tribal people through bamboo, or providing an MOU with the government, a lot of this work is driven not by profit maximization, but by something which is higher than that. Again, this becomes relevant for our own growth thinking in the government, because if business itself is driven by a purpose, then it's much easier for the government to have this interface and then build bridges, so that the purpose of why we are thinking about investing in roads, ports, making poverty a thing of the past, and if business is doing the same with this purpose, synergies are much higher. So our Chief Minister, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis ji, he has absolutely this mindset, and it's refreshing to work with him on these issues. He's able to very nimbly move across between how you can leverage private business for economic growth and how government can be both an enabling and do its role, which is providing public goods, which private sector can't do. So a recent example of that was we floated a mission for 1,000 village transformation. And that mission was not a government-driven effort. It was, we appealed to many corporate sectors, right from the Tatas, Mahindras, across, I mean, anybody from Reliance, Birla, everybody were there. And in one meeting, all of these big corporates committed towards both financial governance support for this mission for transforming 1,000 villages, which is a which is an effort which combines the energy of private sector and the government. The way this was structured was, we first define which villages are the least in terms of human development index, that is highest rates of poverty, highest rates of farmer suicides, least covered in terms of sanitation. You select 1,000 villages like that, and then let the Gram Sabha of that village decide what are their development priorities. And all the private corporate sector who committed to this partnership contribute both financially and in terms of selecting a professional who would stay in that village. And what does the government do in this partnership? So government converges its ongoing programs, whether it is employment guarantees, skilling programs, literacy programs, to this. And it doesn't stop there, because in government we always think that, okay, private sector makes a lot of profit and then we should take a part of that as our CSR contribution and do our bit because we know development best. So that's not what the Chief Minister said on this one. He said in the governance structure of this foundation, each of the contributing private sector corporates would have a position on the governing board along with the Chief Minister, because the government is contributing half that. So this is a joint governance structure which combines the private sector and the government. So coming back to what we are talking about today, this all became possible because when we really examine our own way of looking at development, we find that the best corporate efforts at their own profit maximization is very important. I'm saying this very specifically. You talked about profit, and I totally agree that profit is the means that it needs to be there, the oxygen. The best profit maximization efforts actually lead to more growth and development effort than badly run government efforts sometimes. So it's important to combine the two, which is what we are trying to do with this effort. The second big thing which I think our Chief Minister has done in the last 2 years, which is very new, is he has looked at what restricts businesses, corporate effort at things at which they are the most efficient. You see, government, okay, we may not even partner with you, but let's not make you more inefficient than what you would be in a normal system, because the biggest problem is that much of the investment that goes in private sector ends up being far more inefficient than it would be, but for our regulatory heavy hand. So in the last 2 years, right from amending the Bombay Tenancy and Agricultural Land Act, where agricultural land, the reason for this inefficiency is we are not able to transfer our main resources, whether it is land or labor, across sectors without a cost. The cost is regulatory permissions. So all of that has been eased by this, by the government, and Chief Minister has been the prime driver for this. You would need many permissions if you were to convert agricultural land by a non-agriculturist into industrial purpose. All these have been put on automatic route with a premium payment. Shutting down old industry, which had labor trouble, and transferring it to new industry required NOCs from each and every worker. Those NOCs have been done away with so that land under closed industries can be transferred to news. All of this has been done to ensure that business becomes more efficient, which then comes back to that will work if business works with a purpose, which is of inner motivation. So at the end, what really made me feel very happy is to read in this Financial Times that most of the businesses which run with a purpose, make far more money than those which just maximize profit for itself, because the metric of profit maximization leads to incentives to the staff to do the very things which ensures that short-run profit maximization is not sustained over long run, while the larger purpose, which is the overall good, helps. And countries are moving to that end. India and most countries started off with GDP growth maximization. A small little country on our north, Bhutan, doesn't think about GDP optimization, thinks about happiness index. And just like businesses are now moving into a more ethical purpose, if India as a country moves away from purely growth maximization, I think we'll be in far greater harmony in terms of environment and sustainability. So I think that's the big message, and I thank BSE and Artha Forum for bringing me and giving me an opportunity to speak here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sri Praveen Pardesi, for sharing so many interesting stories of businesses abroad, like the IKEA story, which many of us really did not know, as well as businesses in our own homeland.